Let's go. So, welcome, welcome, welcome. A few household remarks. We're going to talk today a little bit. By the way, Brandon, do you also live in this photo? I'm not sure if it's actually similar. It's a little bit further off, but great to see that you're living in one of the most nicest places of Utrecht. But first, we're going to talk a little bit more about the introduction to EHN, then the mind state of getting into the market, what you would need in savings, and 3 tips to win in the housing market. We're going to also talk a little bit about the timeline. First, let me introduce myself. My name is Kimo. I'm the founder of Expat Housing Network. We are a company that helps internationals with securing a home. I'm half Dutch, half Caribbean. I know what it's like to move to a new country and settle. I'm a father of a daughter who's 4, but thinks she's 16, so it's always a lot of fun. I bought my own home about 5 years ago. I wasn't in the business back then, so I wasn't supporting people with homes to buy. We were only supporting with people with homes to rent back then. Um, and therefore, it took me a while to get my first offer or accepted. It took me 7 offers. And had I known then what I know now, I would have, well, things would have looked a little bit different. Luckily, I'm not in this company by myself. And technically, if you were to decide to move forward with EHN, you'll most likely deal with one of the other people in the team. But I believe greatness is achieved in the agency of others. You'll meet one of these team members. As you can see, they've either lived abroad or they have come from abroad, so they know what it's like to move to a new country and actually settle. And they've bought a large amount of homes for people in the last couple of years. Some more information about EHN. We are not traditional real estate agents. We don't do it to move bricks or we don't do it for the deals. We do it to help people. I kind of like see ourselves more as a destination services. So if you're new into the country, we'll be there to support you and make sure you feel at home. And because so many people enjoyed that, they asked us, could you also support with buying a home? And then we said, okay, let's do that as well. We set that business up about 3 years ago, and we've helped numerous people secure their homes. We only help with buying or renting. We don't sell, we don't let out properties. Why? Because we focus on that aspect only. We've become quite good at it, but also because we feel that we would be distracted if we sell properties, because it's much easier to sell properties. So if you're dealing with 2 clients, one a selling client, one a buying client, naturally the agents will gravitate towards the selling client because it's just much easier. But we have never shied away from a challenge. So we said, okay, let's focus on helping people secure a home. We charge a fixed fee, no commission, and we know what it's like to sell into a new country. Last things I'd like to share about EHN, the added value is that sometimes offers are taken more seriously if you've done your due diligence. We are proof of that. We can also book in viewings when it's no longer possible, and we support by reviewing, of course, legal documents. And one of the most important things, we'll talk about it a little bit later as well, is we help define the market value through market data. And we'll inform you about the rules and regulations and make sure that you don't make the same mistakes that I made when I initially bought. Question to you guys, where in the process are you? Are you orientation phase? Have you started searching? Have you started viewing? Have you maybe submitted an offer? Please feel free to pop it in the chat. That gives me an idea of where you guys are. I'm going to talk a little bit about the mindset because the market is going up, up, up. A lot of you have seen that, maybe seen or read news articles in the news about the price increasing and people not being able to find a home. I'm going to give you a little bit of context because I do think it's important to understand where we are in the market because we get a lot of questions about, is it a good time to buy? Let me first start off with some Utrecht numbers. So the average house price in Utrecht is 439. Last quarter, about 1,509 houses are sold, and the days it took to get us to sell a property from moment that it was on Funda to the moment it was sold was 26 days. So that's relatively quick, right? What we see is that a lot of people don't have the chance to view the property multiple times because it moves so quickly. Okay, why, however, is the market so attractive? Why are the prices going up? If we look at this little graph, then you see there was a big dip, or a bit of a dip after 2008 till 2013, and then things start to go up. Why and how do they go up? Well, first of all, fiscal benefits. The government has made it very interesting to buy a home and to own a home. How? By moving the tax exemption. So if you're 34 years or younger, or if you buy a property up to 400,000 euros, by the way, you have to meet both those criteria. It's not or. So if you're 34 years or younger, if you buy a property up to 400,000 euros, and you've never used the exemption before, then you don't have to pay transfer tax. Transfer tax equals 2% of the purchase price. Let's say the average price was 439. That is about 9 thousand euros that you'll save there. So that's a big chunk. What we're seeing though is that people are putting that money back up in the offers. Also, interest rebate, you can deduct the mortgage interest off your taxable income at the end of the year, so you'll get about 30% back of it. That's great. Also, no capital gains. Let's say you sell your property after a couple of years, you've made a profit, you can put all of that money back into a new property or spend it on something else. But we're seeing that a lot of this money is flocking back into the market. And also, parents can make tax-free donations of up to 100,000 euros if the kids use it for property. So that all creates more money into the market. Also, low interest rates, right? It's very cheap to borrow money. High rents, it's very expensive to rent a property. So we're seeing that more people are driven towards the buying market because it just makes sense. Also, the lack of supply creates, of course, an increasing prices. So we see supply being kind of like stable, declining a little bit, or slowly increasing, but demand, woof, suddenly goes up like that. So, why am I sharing this? Because I believe that the market will not change anytime soon. Of course, macroeconomically, there might be things that we're overlooking, but on a microeconomical scale, this is not going to change. So, we're foreseeing the price to go up at least the next 2 years, and then maybe it'll plateau or maybe it'll dip a little bit. Either way, I think that we're not at the end of that street yet. What would you need in savings before you start? Good question. So I just talked about whether you have to pay transfer tax or not. So let's use two groups. One is the group that's 34 years and younger, buying up to 400,000 euros. The other group is, well, more mature, aged like wine, 35 or older, and is buying a property of more than 400,000 euros. The first group doesn't have to pay transfer tax, so they equal about the total purchase cost, and the fees that they have to pay to secure a property will be 3% of the purchase price, whereas the other group would pay 3% plus the 2% transfer tax, which is 5%. So 3 and 5. Here you see what values you'd probably have to spend on. So the notary, the bank, the appraiser, technical inspector. By the way, in the third column, you'll see what is tax deductible. So some of these costs that are related to the mortgage are tax deductible. So at the end of the year, you can deduct these values from your income tax or the taxable income amount. So you again get 30% of this value back. Please note though, you'll have to have this in savings or you have to spend this out of pocket because you can't mortgage this part. Yeah, so making sure that you have this number in savings when you start or close after you've started. We're going to talk a little bit about several tips to win in the current market. Value, 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 value. So look at this property, 395. We often get the question, what do I have to overbid over the asking price? Hmm. My answer is like, don't look at the asking price. Why not? I'm going to give you an example here. First example. So asking price is 395. Please be mindful that this asking price is the price that the selling agent puts the property up for on the market, right? He has a lot of freedom when it comes to that. He can do it for higher, lower. It's very subjective. The market value, however, is less subjective. They look at properties sold in the last 6 to 12 months that are similar. So look at a property that has similar size, similar bedroom, similar outdoor space, and then you can define the market value. Or what we do is we define a range because there's a level of subjectivity there. Then let's say somebody buys it for 435. Great. Asking price difference between purchase price is about 40K, which is about 10%. 20% or 5% difference between market value and purchase price. Okay. Now let's say another agent puts the same property up, but for 375. The value doesn't change. And let's say somebody buys it for 435. If we use the narrative about how much should I overbid over the asking price, then suddenly it goes from 10% to 16%. The market value and the difference between market value and purchase price doesn't change though. So don't look too much at asking price. You can look at asking price when you look for properties, right? Because it's going to give you kind of like an idea of what you can buy and what you cannot buy. But don't look at the asking price when you submit an offer. Look at the market value because there is a big range between what agents do for different properties. So look at this section and don't look at the asking price. So whenever you ask the question, what should I overbid? Link it to market value. Is there a opportunity to pay market value? Well, nowadays, most often people pay over the market value. So what should I then overbid over market value? Yeah. So value, 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 value. Winning offer. Second one, um, the winning offer is a good price. It's not always the highest price. Let me go back to this example. Good price, not always the highest price. Okay, look at this property, right? So the market value is for 15. You have 20,000 euros in savings. So technically you can spend 435 on this property. Let's say you offer 450 and then the selling agent finds out that or learns that you don't have more than 20K in savings, he's not going to sell it to you. Some people just are not aware of this market value and offer a lot of money over, right? So what they do is they offer submit an offer that is not realistic. It might be the highest price, but it's not always the price that will get you the property. So make sure you offer a good, realistic price that is attractive, but that does meet the market value plus any savings that you have. Um, Offer security to the seller, very important one. The seller doesn't want to start the process over again a month or 2 months in. So you want to give the seller the security that you're going to move forward, that you're serious, that you've done your due diligence, that you don't have too many clauses in that contract that allow you to pull out on a whim. So make sure you offer that security. One of the most famous ones is the finance clause. A finance clause allows you to pull out if you don't get your mortgage. Only put this in if you're not sure about getting your mortgage, and only take this out when you have consent of your financial specialist slash mortgage broker or bank and your agent. Don't do it lightly because there's a fine that you have to pay if you don't get your mortgage and you don't have that clause in. So make sure you understand what the consequences are and if you can actually take it out or leave it in. It will make your offer a little bit more attractive because it offers the seller more security because you'll move forward or you're committed much faster. Then offer the least amount of hassle. The best example is if the seller wants to move out the 1st of February, don't ask him to move out the 1st of January because he has to move his stuff out. He has to find a new accommodation, all that stuff. Sometimes sellers have bought a new home, they need to renovate it. So it takes a little bit of time for them to actually move out of the place. Don't push them into moving out earlier unless you maybe put money behind it. Also, don't ask them too much about things they need to fix. The critical things, yes. So, for example, boilers, all that stuff, they do need to fix it. But when it comes to other stuff like painting the walls and stuff like that, don't bother because most likely, if you have a competitor that has a similar offer that doesn't have those requests, then they'll go for them. Last one, not least one, personal touch, especially if you buy from an owner who's lived in the property. If you buy from an investor, they don't care, they'll just go for the money. But a personal touch is always important if you buy from an owner who's lived in the property themselves, or if you buy from people that have inherited the property because their parents passed away, or something else. If you buy from people that have built kind of like an emotional connection with that property, share a little bit more about yourself, why you like the property, and so on. It definitely will help you in the process. Oh, then the third one is due diligence. I skipped this one because this one also used to kind of like illustrate the difference between a good price and the highest price. Due diligence. So we have two types of people that can come into the property. The technical inspector, what they do is they inspect the property, make sure nothing needs to be renovated on short notice, or you're at least informed by it. So they'll give you a report about what the condition of the property is. Then you have the appraiser, which will share the market value. Why does the appraiser come in? Because we give you a market valuation range, but the bank does not accept the value that we give or that the selling agent gives. So it has to be an independent party to come in to give the value. Well, technically, he's not fully independent because you pay for the appraiser, but he sends his report to an institute that checks if he's played by the rules. If that's the case, then they'll send it to the bank. So my question to you guys is, when do you get these guys in? Do you book them in before or after your offer is accepted? So do you book the appraiser and a technical inspector in before or after your offer is accepted? I'm going to wait a few seconds for that, see if anybody answers, and if you have the right answer. Bruno says after. Any befores? Any more afters? I'll spill the beans on this one. You're correct, Bruno. So you book them in after your offer is accepted. Why not before? Some people ask me, should I book it before? I'm like, no, because if your offer does not get accepted, you've lost money because these guys combined cost about $1,000. So don't book them in before, book them in after. Why is this a bit of a trick question? Because people don't know when they're committed to a deal. You're not committed once the offer is accepted. So this timeline illustrates what the commitment kind of like period looks like. So once your offer is accepted, book them in. Then a week and a half, you sign the purchase contract. Then 3 days after signing the purchase contract, your cool off period ends. After this cool off period ends, you are locked in. Before the cool off period ends, you can pull out of the deal without giving any reason. You might have incurred some costs like the inspector, the appraiser, maybe the notary costs, but you're not committed to a deal and you don't have to pay any fines or anything like that. So you can pull out without giving any reason. But what is good to know is that that value will be important because let me go back to this one. Let me go back to this one Because what I forgot to say is that market value is the amount that the mortgage provider will give to you. They're not going to give you asking price or bridge price. They're going to give you the market valuation. And you'll want to know what that market valuation is before you kind of like commit yourself, especially if you need a mortgage, right? So make sure you understand what that value is. So get the appraiser in ASAP. Also, regarding the technical inspector, get them in ASAP because if there's anything that you want to negotiate on, you'll want to do that before you sign that deal. So make sure you get them in ASAP and get those reports before you sign a bridge contract. If you're not able to get the reports before the bridge contract, make sure you get them in latest before the cool off period. Okay, now we'll go to the timeline, which is also the final piece of this presentation. By the way, if you have any questions, please already feel free to pop them in the chat and I'll answer them in a few. So from start to search to getting offer accepted, it's a bit skewed, this timeline, because it can take weeks, months before you've got an offer accepted. Depends a little bit on what's on the market, how attractive your offers are, and so on. But let's assume it's done relatively quickly. Let's take today. Your offer is accepted today. Congratulations. Then what you do tomorrow is book in the appraiser and the technical inspector. Get them in ASAP. Then you'll sign the purchase contract, which is the agreement between you and the seller. Then the mortgage application is finally completed. So that means that the mortgage provider, the bank, has all the documents that are necessary to process your mortgage application. Don't wait to talk to a mortgage broker or to a bank before or until this moment. Talk to them already, right? They'll be able to give you more information about where you can borrow and so on. Then this orange dot is the cool off period. It ends 3 days after you've signed the purchase contract. So once it's expired, you're locked into the deal. You can only pull out if, for example, the purchase contract contains clauses that allow you to. But let's say you don't, you want to move forward, then the mortgage, it takes 2 to 4 weeks to get your mortgage approved. It sometimes happens faster, but just be sure. Then, about 7 days before you get the keys, you'll receive the final note. It's kind of like the final invoice of the notary. Like I mentioned, you have the purchase price. On top of it, you have closing fees, and then you deduct the mortgage off it, and then you'll end up with the closing fees that have to be paid. That's the final invoice that the notary will share, and they will have to be in the account of the notary before the day of transfer. Then, on the day of transfer, you become the proud owner, but you first go to the property, make sure that it's still in the good condition. Then you go to the notary, you sign the transfer deed, which makes you the owner, and then the seller transfers title to you. You'll get the keys, and then you'll sign the mortgage deed, which makes you the proud owner of the mortgage. Let's say something is not working once you've moved in. You have about 2 months to inform the selling party about this. If you wait too long, it becomes difficult to prove because you have the obligation to prove that it wasn't correct when you've moved in. Let's say you wait 2 months and something is broken, something's not working, then the seller most likely will say, "Hey, we didn't know about this. If this was working during when we were staying in it, so it's your responsibility." But if you can prove it after a couple of days, then most likely they'll have to still fix it. Okay, cool. That was the timeline. By the way, this timeline can take anywhere from 3 to 9 months, depending on what is on the market, how often or fast your offer is accepted, and when the seller also wants to move out, right? Because let's say the seller's bought something new, but he can only move in in what 4 months, then you might have to wait 4 months for that. Q&A, please pop the questions in the chat. Breno asks, could you please talk about service scope and price of EHN? Yes, I can. We have two different packages. We have a smart package and a complete package. Smart is kind of like your virtual assistant. Complete is we actually go to all the appointments with you. We'll book them in and so on. Smart, you'll actually get into or will come into action once you view the property that you like. We'll review the documents. We'll define the market valuation, negotiate, draft the offer, set up third parties, all that stuff. The complete package is everything that I just mentioned, but we'll actually go to the viewings. We'll actually book the viewings. We'll go to the technical inspector. We'll go to the notary. What we charge for the smart package is 2,500 euros, all in, no hidden fees, no hidden taxes. And for the complete package, we charge 4,000 euros. Again, all in, no hidden fees, no hidden taxes. Naina, how to arrive at the purchase price for a property? Do third parties consultants provide an estimation in this regard? Yes, that's us. So what we do is we define a market valuation range. So we'll say, let's look at this property. Then scroll back. Let's look at this property. Bum. So the property's on the market for 395. Let's say you work with us. We define the market valuation range. So we have found out that properties nearby, similar to this one, have been sold for around 430, right? Between 425 and 435. We'll give you that range. We'll say, okay, this value will be close to 425 to 435. So based on that, you can say, okay, I'm going to offer this, at least market value plus something else. And then you'll be able to, yeah, we'll define the actual purchase price together with you for this property or the offer that we want to submit. We'll look at properties, at least 3 to 4 properties sold in the last 6 to 12 months that are similar. Oh, that answer your question a little bit. How many viewings are included as part of the package? For now, unlimited, but we will have a chat after viewing number 10, I think, where we're like, okay, hey, what is going on? Like, have we submitted an offer yet or not? What is the best way to do it? If you're, especially if you're in a very early stage, then what we've experienced is a lot of people are just looking at properties to get a feel for it, but not really convinced that these are the properties that they want. But we are not linking it um, to a fast number, right? Let's say we submit an offer after the fourth viewing and the offer is not accepted, we have to start over again. That is fine, right? That is fine by us. In the end, we're here to guide you, and also we can build a relationship while we meet you during the viewings. By the way, if you want to have an intake with us, book it in free of charge, no strings attached. No strings attached. I just pasted the link in the session. What about the purchase contract? Nanya asks, what is the bargaining power of the buyer to negotiate clause in its favor? Is there a lawyer required for the same? So the bargaining power for the buyer depends a little bit on the balance within the offer. Let's say we offer a really good price, but we request certain things of it, right? That's something that we'd have to feel out for it because we need to figure out how important it is for the seller that, for example, certain things are in or not. The finance clause, for example, is something that we would remove if your financial advisor gives consent. Um, but keep in if we feel that it's risky, or keep in if we feel there's certain things about the property that don't match up, right? Because selling agents, they can tell a good story about a property, but we are responsible for making sure that we kind of like poke holes in it and see where the faults are. So also when it comes to a technical inspector, right? Sometimes you don't put a clause in the contract, but you still have a technical inspector come in, and then you say, hey, sorry, but this guy shown us this and that, we can't accept this. So we need to do this and that. So it's a little bit of the order of things as well. It changes, it differs per property. If it's a new build, then it's completely different. If it's a newly renovated, it's completely different as well. But we figure out how popular a property is, what our power is when it comes to the offer. And sometimes it's better to get a seat at the table, so offer a good offer and then start negotiating, than the other way around. Abi, so our company name is Expat Housing Network. I've posted the link in the chat. In the link, you can actually reach out to us and schedule an intake to chat with one of my colleagues. Any further questions? I know I sailed that presentation. I love Utrecht. I think it's a really, really nice city to live in, and I think that there's plenty of still good areas to buy good value for money. I think that depends a little bit on what you're looking for. We're seeing a lot of people go to some of the more kind of like high builds, new builds, but I think that the city center, especially north of the Hoogkaterijnen and of the um, train station, it's a bit posh, but it's quite good there. South, especially southwest, we're seeing an area being in development. So I say that that is definitely a good area to live in. But again, it depends a little bit what you're looking for. One more question from Abi. So I have one more question. Let's say if someone is saying they will leave in 6 months, can we start mortgage payment from that time? So technically, the mortgage payment starts once the transfer takes place, but the mortgage provider doesn't offer a. So what happens is you sign an offer with the bank, right? But if that offer is signed today, and your mortgage starts in 6 months, there's too many variables for the bank to take into account. There's a risk there as well. So they might ask you for a premium, or you might have to wait a little bit with signing that offer for the bank, which could mean that the interest rate goes up like a 0.05 decimal or something like that, or down. So double check this with your mortgage advisor or with the bank, what their policies are when it comes to signing for a mortgage and then starting it actually 6 months later. No further questions? Okay, then again, ladies and gentlemen, have a lovely day. Take care. Good luck. If you work with us, then we'll see you soon. If you don't, then good luck and hope to actually that you'll actually be able to secure a home. Take care, guys. Bye bye.